So Jesus has cleared the temple and went back to Bethany. We pick up our story in Matthew 21. Verse 18, it says this: In the morning, as Jesus was returning to Jerusalem, he was hungry, and he noticed a fig tree beside the road. He went over to see if there were any figs, but there were only leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." And immediately the fig tree withered up. The disciples were amazed when they saw this, and they asked, "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" Then Jesus told them, "I tell you the truth, if you have faith and don't doubt, you can do things like this and much more. You can even say to this mountain, 'May you be lifted up and thrown into the sea,' and it will happen. You can pray for anything, and if you have faith, you will receive it." So Jesus was heading back to Jerusalem, and along the way he stops and curses a barren fig tree, and then tells his disciples that if they have doubtless faith, they can move mountains and throw those mountains into the sea. Cool. There's a lot to unpack here with this story. I'm not even going to attempt to give you a long breakdown of this passage, but I will say that to the disciples, this illustration of a fig tree wasn't as random to them as it might seem to be to you. See, throughout the scriptures that these disciples had been memorizing for years of their life, fig trees were used to represent both good and evil. Think of those fig leaves in the Garden of Eden. Fruitful fig trees represented prosperity and wellness of spirit, and fig trees with no fruit were often used to represent barrenness of the soul. In other words, if the illustration is that there's fig on the fig tree, that meant that things were good and strong and the spirit was fruitful and connected to the vine. But no figs on the fig tree meant that things weren't where they needed to be, and that's what we see here. Jesus calling out this fig tree as sort of this living parable is essentially his way of calling out those who look the part and talk the part but are producing no fruit. See, when this was going on, there's a really good chance he was referring to the Pharisees when he referenced the fig tree with just leaves. See, these guys were seen as extra holy leaders. They looked great in their majestic clothes. They knew the scriptures forward and back. They said all of the things they were supposed to say. They held themselves higher than those who didn't know as much as them. But their true faith wasn't in what they said it was. It was in their appearance and their works. So basically, they produced a lot of fancy fig leaves, but no figs. Right after the fig tree withers, we see the disciples are amazed and they ask Jesus, "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" Jesus comes back with a really well-known passage on faith and how true faith can move mountains if it's strong enough. In other words, strong faith and trust in him equals a lot of figs and not just fig leaves. So while there's a lot to dissect there, the thing I want you thinking about today is this. When it comes to faith and fig trees, how would you like Jesus to describe you? Fig leaves with no figs, like the Pharisees? Or a healthy fig tree with lots of figs, like the person with Christ-like faith? I mean, honestly, if you're watching this video, you're probably someone who follows Jesus, so I know what your answer is. You want all the figs, man, not just the leaves. You want to be living out that faith and bear much fruit. But here comes the challenge for today. We know how you would want Jesus to describe your faith in him, but is that the way it actually is? Do you really bear more resemblance to the person whose faith is so strong God can do the impossible through you? Or does it look more like the Pharisees? Maybe you're so focused on your appearance or just saying the right things or just surface level belief that becomes your identity and your faith is mainly in what you can do. Lots of fig leaves, not many figs. Ouch. That's tough. I know it's tough. The good news is that if you're feeling more like a Pharisee today, that's okay. We all slip into this phase. The good news for you is that while your faith may sometimes fall mainly on yourself, you serve a great big God who loves you so much, he's ready to take you into his arms and help you find the true faith in him. Just ask him. Again, I know this is tough stuff to listen to and to think about, but even if you're in a spot of the Pharisees, this can end happy and hopeful and full of faith. And to help get you there, really take some time today to have an honest moment with God in prayer and tell him where you're at. He already knows. And tell him you want some more of that faith that can move mountains. Tell him you believe he is who he says he is and that your faith is in the one who was crucified and raised from the dead on this week 2,000 years ago. Ask him to reveal himself to you and have some faith in your prayer that he will help guide your path to get there. Who knows what he might do? Maybe some mountains can move. Wouldn't it be something if at the end of today, you went from not just producing those fig leaves, but producing some figs to go along with it.